Hello, and welcome to By Moonlight, where it's not a phase to be on the run and worth a $20 million reward. This week, we are talking all things Netflix's Shadow and Bone Season 2, Episodes 1 and 2.
Yay!
Yay!
It's out. It's finally out.
It exists!
And may I say, a little over a year since I first saw the series. I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, it has been. That's exciting.
Yeah. Things are moving fast. Time
Yes, they are.
is relative.
Time's the construct.
So, to start this season of Shadow and Bone, we learn that Alina and Mal have escaped from Ravka to the country of Novi Zem, with the intentions of seeking out Morozova's final two amplifiers and using them to destroy the Shadowfold once and for all. Meanwhile, Kaz, Inej, and Jesper have returned to Ketterdam to find that their beloved Crow Club and the menagerie where Inej is indentured have been bought up by the evil Pekka Rollins. And oh yeah, they've also been framed for murder.
I thought this was Shadow and Bone, not a series of unfortunate events.
It is, in fact, a series of unfortunate events that are taking place.
But don't worry, because Alina and Mal are in trouble too, and when they are recognized by Second Army soldiers and chased from Novi Zem onto a ship that belongs to none other than the famous privateer and inventor Sturmhond, Sturmhond and his crew agree to help Alina and Mal find the final amplifier. But do they succeed?
Yes!
Yay!
Wait.
Do they though?
I mean, they do. Alina kills the Sea Whip as it tries to kill Mal, and has two of its scales forged as a bracelet into her second amplifier. Unfortunately, her nightmares about the Darkling have come true as he has emerged from the fold with new dark powers and an army of shadows called the Nichevoya. That's a tongue twister.
Nichevoya. We finally got that pronunciation.
Nichevoya. And a small group of Grisha who are willing to follow him.
Yay!
Wait, not yay.
And all is well.
Not yay.
Nothing bad happened ever.
Things are grim. Things are a little grim, a little sad, if you will. Yikes. Yikers.
I'm Caitlin, and I got up way too early today.
Oh, no. What time did you get up?
5:30.
Oh.
Which is, in, like, concept, a good idea. So, like, you get up early, you get your day started, and then you're super productive. I was just tired. So, wasn't for me. Maybe won't do it again.
Nah.
Who are you?
I'm Emberlyn, and it is now T-minus 5 days until I see Taylor Allison Swift in concert.
Woohoo!
Hence
I'm excited for you.
Hence my folklore merch and my star earrings and the look of pure madness that's glazed over my eyes. So
As you should. I feel like that's the only way to prep for a T Swift concert.
factual, yes, very true. So Caitlin, Shadow and Bone is back.
It is.
We're back at it again with the band of misfits and magical beings.
Yep. This is true.
Was there a specific moment that hooked you in this first episode?
Yeah, so I figured for this season that we would be getting Kaz's backstory, but I wasn't at all prepared for it to start in episode 1.
Yeah.
You just get like little flashes of it, but the second it happened, I was like, whoa, hey, I just got here. I just sat down.
I just sat down.
Let me get comfortable first. They said, no, it's trauma time. Let's go. So I was like, all right, cool. I guess we're doing, we're just getting into the trauma right away. So
yeah,
I was like,
we're going to dive right in. In the spirit of Taylor Swift, we're going to dive right in.
Ironically, she's diving into the water, much like Cass did.
That's so mean and hurtful and sad. Ow. Ow.
I didn't write it.
Ow. 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 Lee.
Yeah.
Ow.
What was your hook besides trauma?
The map. I really liked the map scenes.
Oh, yeah.
We talk a lot on this show when we've reviewed past fantasy series, or at least like the book renditions of this series, about how we love a good map in a book. We love when you open up the book and you just get a sense of the world immediately, because you get this really great, usually very well drawn up map with like all these cool little magical beasts on it, and like little symbols that indicate like what the land is famous for, and like I love that.
A sense of direction.
Yeah, a sense of direction is nice. So we get that in the show where whenever, and this happens I think first when we move from a scene with Alina and Mal to a scene with the Crows, where it's like we zoom out from Novi Zem and then we go all the way to Ketterdam. And I just love the animation. I think it's really cool. It makes me feel like I'm like experiencing a book, or like I'm reading a book, or I'm just like watching. It's very, it's like one of those classic fantasy characteristics that really, I feel like, keeps me invested, because it shows that the writers or the authors or the show creators have taken a lot of care in building the world. So I really liked that.
Yeah, and I feel like that must help people who aren't readers of the books to get an idea of where they are, like who's in relation to what. So I mean, if you don't read the books and you don't have that map in front of you, you have no sense of idea of where Navia Zem is or where Ketterdam is, all in relation to Ravka, and where, like, who's where. Because at this point, they're all kind of spread out across the map of the Grishaverse. So I bet you, I'm wondering if that was helpful to people who didn't know, who maybe needed that last season.
Yeah, I agree. And I'll also agree with you about Kaz's backstory being introduced like immediately. Because I wasn't expecting us to dive right into that in the book. That was a huge hook for me, as getting some kind of hints about why he is the way he is. So for this to come back again, and be so relevant right off the bat in the first episode was like, like traumatizing for me. Yeah. But I would also assume very interesting for someone who hasn't read the book, because they actually get to like get that hook right off the bat of like, oh wait, what's up with Kaz? Like, what's his whole deal? Why is he the way he is?
Did you have any favorite quotes from these first two episodes?
Yeah, I love the part where Kaz and Jesper are walking along at night in Ketterdam, and he says, what did you find out, Inej? Kaz does. And all of a sudden she comes up behind them both and like startles Jesper a little bit. Because it's such a great example of their dynamic where, you know, Inej is the Wraith. She's so quiet. You could barely notice her coming up on you in a crowd of people, but Kaz would, because of their connection and like their chemistry. Yeah. So I really like that.
Where she is.
Yeah, I was like, wah! Yeah, really got me going.
I just always love that in the books, because it's like no one can hear her. No one ever knows when she's coming, but for some reason he just knows. And he's so in tune to her in that sense. And I loved how they've been like showing that, how they show that in the show. Yeah, he just like starts talking to her without anybody else knowing that she's there.
Yes.
It's really cool.
Oh, it hits. And then another one, just one of my many favorites from Jesper. It's when he's sitting in the restaurant across the street, I think from the bank, with Inej, and he says, I have so many questions. What? Who? Why? Where? And then he's like, I guess that's all of them. Like he didn't have any additional questions. Like, because he's such like a snappy, like quippy character. He's kind of like the Nikolai counterpart for the Shadow and Bone series here, where he's like the one that has like all of the great comic relief. Though arguably they have like a lot of great quippy lines. But I really like that line, and I just kind of like, I love Jesper. Hard eyes.
Great. Hard eyes, Jesper, my beloved.
Just for him. Yeah. And then
I love him.
Lastly, this was my favorite line so far this season, I think. And at this point I've watched like, I think over half of it. The barrel doesn't belong to kings, it belongs to bastards. And that's Kaz. What a great line. I like, it felt like it could have come from the book, and it really made me go, oh yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Like that's my man. Oh my god.
She's prepping.
I'm prepping. How about you? What were yours?
I'm a huge fan of Jesper, and he had some really good lines. Like, I loved when I laughed out loud so he and Kaz are like taken in handcuffs, basically.
Yeah.
And they're in the presence of like the guy who hired him. last season. That guy and then Sturmhond, and Jesper just looks at him and he goes, "What's all this then?"
Yeah, I thought of you when I heard that. I was like, oh my god. Because all the time you and I were like, right, what's all this then?
What's all this then? Yeah. I mean, say it all the time, and just like, I know it's something that's said, but just to hear it in a Netflix show, I was like, ha, this is great.
Oh, perfect. I'm going to refer back to this when people are like, no one says that. I'm going to be like, well, watch this.
Yeah. We say it all the time. You and I say it all the time, and it's just like one of my favorite things to say because like it just kind of says everything that you need to say. Just what's all this then?
Right.
And so I can't wait to just like find a GIF of that somewhere and just have it on hand for when I need it.
Absolutely.
I use it all the time.
Absolutely.
That made me laugh so hard. Another one from Jesper is when he so seriously says, "We are not vultures. We are crows." And that makes more sense with context.
Yeah, he's like, this is the lore. You just don't get it.
Yeah, like you had to be there. Like that's a really good line if you knew what we were talking about.
Right.
And then from episode 2, I loved when Nikolai, aka Sturmhond, just the absolute disrespect he shows Mal, like throughout like their beginning. Mal's like, "What do you want with us then?" And Nikolai says, "With you, nothing. Honestly, I'm not even sure who you are." And then he refers to Mal as like the Sun Summoner's guest, and then Mal's later like, "He can't even bother to learn my name. It's not even a long name." He just continues to like not like even like care who Mal is at all. So I just thought that was really funny. This line doesn't come from the show, but it comes from my friend Molly, who when we were watching the first couple episodes together, she looked at Nikolai and says half of this man's acting comes from him holding a drink in his hand because he's always like got something. And because like half of his like acting just is like based on this prop, and he's like always pouring himself a drink or being like, "Haha, now you're speaking my language." Taking this thing.
He's a prop actor. It's like really important to his character.
I also really liked the allusions to lines that came from the book, specifically from Six of Crows. Matthias is in Helligate, and you see him like kind of think of like dreams that he's had. I'm assuming that they're dreams because of the line that happens in Six of Crows. Because we didn't see this happen in season 1 of Shadow and Bone, but it's like basically him and Nina sleeping together. And it just immediately made me think of his opening line of his first chapter when it says Matthias was dreaming again, dreaming of her. And so I really, really liked that.
They did not give us crumbs. They were like, here.
They were like, here's a full course meal, baby. And I said, thank you. And then also, when Kaz said to Inej, "All you need to know is that I have a reason," which to me alluded to the line in Inej's first chapter that said, "Kaz Brecker didn't need a reason." Yeah, I really liked that. Sometimes when things are hinted at instead of said like blatantly, I almost appreciate it more because it's like if you read the books, you're like, I know what that is. I know what that means. Yeah. So I just really liked those little nods where it's like, if you know, you know.
If you know, you know. If you're a girly, if you're in the book fan club, if you read books,
if you're gonna read
for you.
Yeah, so those were some standouts for me for sure.
I feel like there were so many in these first couple episodes. I feel like the overwhelming I think takeaway from our review is going to be that this was like a really strong start to the season just because of everything that happens right away. What song would you want to be your background music as you live in hiding from your enemies, Caitlin?
I said I Fought the Law by The Clash.
Oh my god.
Because I fought the law and the law won. Like they all like kind of like triumphed at the end of season 1, and then immediately you open up season 2 and they're like, nah. So like especially with the Crows, like they get to Ketterdam and Pekka Rollins is taking over everything, and they immediately get like arrested, and it's just like, sorry, oops. You got away for like 5 minutes and you're just back in it again. The only time that they were able to rest was on their way back to Ketterdam. That was it, and then immediately just started again.
Yeah, everything is just consistently is bad. Yeah, like Jesper's continued complaining about like his bed and his hats. I just like really felt that. I was like, damn, you come home, your house is literally in shambles. There's nothing you can do. Like
you just want to take a nap.
Literally, like it's not right.
No. What's all this then? What about you? What song would you play?
I said The Stranger by Billy Joel, because it's like a very fun, mysterious song. I highly recommend looking up the lyrics because I feel like they are very applicable here. The song starts with like this whistling, like doo 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 doo. It's so good. And I think it's on my Kaz Brecker playlist on Spotify because it's like one of those great like mysterious I'm the guy in town. I'm the highwayman type of situation.
I'm the highwayman.
Yeah. Like, it really gives me those vibes. So, that was mine.
All right, Umberlin. So what character would you take first watch for?
There are so many characters that I would take first watch for. I can't, it's like going to be really hard for me to choose. But, in no particular order, Mal, I feel like I love him in the show, so much. 100%. Like, they really fixed him from the book. Like, in the book, I want nothing to do with him, but in the show, I'm like, oh, what a wonderful man. Like, in this first episode alone, I felt so much admiration for him, and I felt like just the way he treats Alina is so good. Like, so much better than the book. Like, so lovely. Choice. Like, they work so well together. I feel like their chemistry is just much more noticeable than I feel like it was in the book, where in the book there's like no chemistry, just bad vibes, IMO. But
yeah, especially during Siege and Storm.
Yeah, especially during Siege and Storm. Yeah, oh my god, great point. Like, it seems like at the point where in the book I was like, this guy, like, enough. Yeah. I was actually in the show like, wow. What a beautiful little soul. Like, good for him. Toya and Tamar, their introduction, I was just...
Yeah.
I have nothing particular to say about them yet, but I will say when I first saw them, I was like, yes, they're here.
I love them.
Yeah, like, a special shout out to Daisy Head as Genya.
Yeah.
Her facial journeys for the first 2 episodes are fucking fabulous. Like, she just looks persistently horrified by everything going on around her.
Yeah, she has seen the horrors.
Yeah, like, it's so, like, sad to see how traumatized she's been, both before the Darkling does what he does to her and after. Like, the little tear when she walks into the room to try to heal some of the scarring on his face. I was like... Yeah. Daisy, please.
Daisy.
And then Danielle Galligan as Nina. This is like perfection. This is gonna come up for me again, but like the scene where she kind of like gives Kaz a run for his money in the restaurant when she gets her waffles. Like, the plate of waffles comes out and then she's like, oh yeah, I just went and asked the waitress. I was like,
yeah,
my girl. Oh, I love her. She overwhelms me with love. And then, of course, Jack Wolfe, who I think will be one of the most memorable characters from this season, as Wylan.
Oh, yeah.
I would like you to talk about that because I know that's going to be important to what you have to say, Caitlin.
Yeah. So, in our notes, I put Wylan. Because, like, the second he showed up, I was like, because first of all, I love his character so much. And also, he literally is like, they took him off of the page.
Oh, yes.
Like, he is, like I feel like the Crows have the strongest and most perfect casting amongst, like, all of the characters in this series. But
yeah,
there's just something about Wylan that I'm just like if no one told, if they didn't announce, like, who was playing who, like, beforehand, and they just showed him to me, I'd be like, I already know who he is, and I know his story.
I know who he is, I know what he's doing here. Yeah.
So, like, when he showed up, I was, like, so excited, and he's perfect. I thought I was gonna be bothered because he's not ginger, like he is in the books, but I'll allow it because he's perfect. Everything about him, not even just in looks, but all of his mannerisms, the way he speaks, the way he just is
he's just a little guy.
Wylan. Yeah, and it makes me think of, I saw this interview where Kit Young, who plays Jesper, says he felt like it took him a while to meet Jack, the actor because
Oh
he is
my
so
gosh.
violent, and I was just like, I love that. I love how in tune they
That's
all are to their
lovely.
characters, and I just think that, like, especially coming into a new season with such a huge character, but like you're coming into a show where everyone already knows everybody else, like that must be so
Yeah.
hard. But it's like he was meant to be there the entire time, and I'm just like so happy he's here and with the crows and like in the
Yeah.
story now, and I love him.
I'm glad that we fought for this show to have a second season, because if the fans hadn't like pulled up, then we would have never met Jack Wolfe as Wylan, and I feel like
I know.
like, yes, like, good job.
We did that. I also said Genya specifically for Daisy Head's acting because she's having a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day all of the time. She is constantly in distress, like you said, and I think she is almost always crying, which cannot be easy. It's funny because like this show feels like it's like a fun, silly little fantasy show, and then you get to Genya's story, and you're like, oh, okay, never mind, I'm sad now, and like everyone's just like, we're the crows, we're on the run, and Genya's like, I'm literally having the worst time of my life.
I'm suffering. Yeah.
Suffering. I also wanted to shout out to Kit Young as Jesper because I also feel like he is perfect, and he, even in season 1, to me, he kind of just came off the page like, this is Jesper.
Yes.
And everything about him is perfect, and I love him, and I wouldn't change a thing.
No, real. Caitlin, is there a character that you would throw your knives at?
Oh, yeah. So first, I have two. So first I said the Darkling because every time he said Malina,
yeah,
made my skin crawl. I think he might have only said it like maybe once at the end of episode 2. But
once is more than enough, right?
It was more than enough when he said Malina. I was like, who gave you the right? First
Your
of
who?
all.
Your property?
Your what? Like, you are not entitled to her, and also she is not your possession. Also, with everything that you did to her, why do you... I still, like, what baffles me about the Darkling is, like so like, my dad and I were talking about this because my dad read the books and he's watched the show, and we were talking about this with, like, the Darkling, like, you see why he is the way that he is. Like, they are caging his people. They are, like, taking away, like, basically their rights and torturing them and seeing Grisha as, like, the enemy. So, yeah, I get why he'd be mad about that, but it's the choices that he makes to get power and control, and he manipulates people, and it's just a whole thing. It's like, you could have been redeemed if you weren't such a piece of shit, you know?
It makes you wonder how authentic his concerns are for the civil rights of Grisha versus just them being a talking point for him to just like gain power, which is like relatable. Like, isn't that where we live? Isn't this?
Yeah.
I'm like, just check my location. Aren't we in the United States? So I feel like that's such a great example of like who he is, where maybe he has these great talking points, but it's like, I mean, if he really was the great and powerful, like, person that he claimed to be, then I feel like he would have been more active in securing Grisha rights than just, like, randomly murdering people and, like, maintaining a dark fold of magic.
Yeah, there are other ways.
Half of a city. Yeah. Like,
half a country. You know?
Side eye. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, he, I'm like, dude, you had me in the first half, but again,
Ben Barnes has me in all halves and all divides, if you will.
Yeah.
The Darkling.
Ben Barnes the Darkling, however, I'm just like, my guy, check yourself. So, him, because he just makes me go, ooh, every time. Yeah. Like, he's, especially when it comes to Alina, whether he's talking about her or interacting with her, I'm just like, please get away from her.
Yes, like, exactly.
Yeah. And also Pekka Rollins, for obvious reasons. I do like that they're showing more of him because I think he is an interesting character. So to see the whole backstory between Kaz and what happened with him because of Pekka Rollins is really interesting to see all unfold. So, however, I know what he did, and it was not fun to read about. And I don't like, not a fan, not a big fan of this guy. Kind of the worst. So yeah. What?
I think he did it, and I just can't prove it.
How many Taylor Swift songs can we get into the podcast before you go see this concert?
All of them.
You're gonna get her entire set list.
You think it's interesting that she performed 44 songs in her set list? Well, what if I just mentioned them all casually right here, right now? Wouldn't that be interesting and cool? I think so.
Yeah.
Okay, let's start. Only the Young. No, I'm just kidding. She didn't even sing Only the Young. What am I doing? Anyway, okay.
So what character would you throw all of your knives at?
I wouldn't throw a knife per se at any characters, but I feel like I do have a bone to pick. A shadow and bone, perhaps. With like executives at Netflix that push for like a really tight turnaround on VFX creation, because I feel like the VFX in this show are persistently weak, and like I'm trying to be mindful that like this is a Netflix show and like there's a limited budget and time to do these things, but I'm also trying to be mindful that this is a Netflix show and they have unlimited budget and time if they would grant their creators both of those resources to do these things. So there were a couple times when like something would happen, especially with Alina's power, like that would take me out and I'd just be like, okay. And there's a part of me that personally loves this, and I'll get more into this later, because this show reminds me, I think, a lot of like early 2000 sci-fi, like Doctor Who, where it's like maybe the VFX aren't the best, but it's still like fun and immersive. Yeah, and it's like a place to escape to. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know, because I love these characters so much, and because this story is so VFX dependent, because there's so much magic involved, I would have liked to see more I feel like attention to detail on the part of executives. I don't want to blame the people who are creating these things, because I can't imagine what kind of pressure they're under. And I'm sure they're all very talented, but just in general, there were times when I was like, oh, this reminds me of how Netflix just like pushes out shows over and over and over again with like some quality issues because they just want to like make money. So that was like the one thing that kept coming back to me over and over again, where to the point that I would like to throw knives at the white blurbs and dark blurbs that both Darkling and Alina produce. But that was it.
Yeah.
What you gonna do? What you gonna do? Yeah.
Look what you made me do.
Oh! Fuck! Yeah. Real. Very real. Unreal.
All right, so getting into our peaks and valleys for the first 2 episodes of Shadow and Bone Season 2, what was your first peak?
Oh, okay. So given everything I just said about VFX, I think real effects, everything that's like related to costuming and like set design remains baller. Like so fucking cool. I think that the level of detail that goes into making a show like this shines through when you look at all of the attention that goes into like embroidering the keftas and like putting certain books in certain places, like making Ketterdam look a very certain stinky way. There was a point during the Sea Whip attack where it looked like they used a puppet for at least one of the scenes, and I was like, yeah, puppet! Like, that was cool to me. Like, I loved that. Visual, I think any of those visual effects, anything that happened that was like just done without using any VFX, I was just like fully immersed in, because I think it really brought out what potential the show has. I feel like there's so much that happens in the book that shines through because of the special attention to detail and to casting and to setting and to everything that visually makes this show look cool. So yeah, that was mine. How about you?
Kind of going along those lines, I love how fantasy this feels.
Yeah.
Not just in setting, like with what you were saying, but with the dialogue and presentation. And I know at times it can be cheesy, and kind of like predictable, or just kind of like, ugh, oh my god, I can't believe they just said that. But I wouldn't want it any other way. This is why I love fantasy, because you have those dramatic like lines that you just don't get anywhere else. Like, you're not gonna, like, they don't work anywhere else, like in a real setting.
Yeah.
But like, there's just something about it that it just makes me happy whenever I'm watching something fantasy. So there was some dialogue that I like to call NPC dialogue between two Ravkan refugees in the library that Alina was in.
Yeah.
And they're basically, what they're saying is like, oh yeah, the Sun Saint lives. Oh, but she didn't tear down the fold like she promised. Yeah, her and the Darkling deserve, you know, bad things happen to them. I hate them, and they're the reason why our lives are so terrible.
Yeah.
And it's just there for Alina to overhear and for her to go, oh man, people don't like me, and that's really bad for me right now. And it's just like any dialogue that's just like, we are giving out information that everyone totally knows, and it's not for the audience to get this information at all. It makes me like crack up every time, because like I'll watch it and be like, yes, I also too knew that. So I really enjoyed that. I the slow-mo that they use in some like fight scenes.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm like, dude, come on. Like with Mal, like I didn't think that it needed to be used, but I was like, whatever, it works. I will allow it for Jesper, for the slow-mo to be used there, because he's going so fast. You kind of have to slow it down to kind of get into the sense of like, he's doing this really quickly, but for us to understand what's happening, you have to kind of slow it down. So it works for Jesper's scenes, but like with Mal, I was like, you didn't need that. Or like it kind of slowed down when Alina does her first big like sunburst thing. I was just like, this is cheesy. I love it so much. the way the Zemini all did, like collectively like turned around and like blocked the path for Alina and Mal to get away, but then they all stood there for what seemed like 2 minutes just staring at Alina and Mal, and for them to like kind of lock eyes with each other and be like, we're helping you, and then they all collectively like do like the symbol for the saint. I'm just like, how did you know how to do that all at the same time?
It's giving Hunger Games.
Yeah. So and then they all turn around and face the soldiers who had guns to their backs. Like, I just can't imagine like being the Ravkan soldiers behind them and being like,
what?
Excuse me, we need to get over there. You know? Like, so Alina, there was a poster that was clearly like a drawing of the Darkling and Alina. That someone did, because that would make sense. They don't have cameras in this universe that I know of, but to get a likeness of Alina and the Darkling, someone drew them. But then at the same time, there's clearly an actual picture that someone just edited to look like some sort of drawing of Kazanej and Jesper.
Oh, I saw that.
I was like, where'd you get that photo? Like, when did that happen?
Okay, guys,
that was really funny.
If we get together, we're gonna pose for your mugshot for later in the season, a couple months from now. Don't worry.
Yep.
None of this has happened yet. It's just really important.
I just thought it was funny that instead of doing another like drawing of them, they literally like they took a still from an earlier scene and edited it to look like a newspaper clipping.
Like,
and then
increase saturation, decrease color.
Yeah, like I could make it on my iPhone.
It's like a Snapchat filter. Yeah.
Yeah. And then also, like, you don't get dialogue like, I have returned and I made some new friends as like the Nichevoya, like, come up behind the Darkling. I'm just like, yes, this is dramatic.
Wow.
And then you've mentioned it already, but Tolia and Tamar's entrance had no reason to be that dramatic.
That's true.
But I loved that it was. Because, like, I feel like as, like, a book reader, you're like, yes, Tolia and Tamar, like, let's go. And, like, you love it. But, like, I'm just wondering if there's anybody who didn't read the books and for, like, them to be introduced like that, to be like, whoa, who are these people? And they just start talking about, like, random things.
Yeah.
That have no importance at all. Like, I just wondered, like, how that read for them.
How are they important?
Yeah, because it's like slow-mo shots of like their outfits and their weapons and like what they look like, and then they look at each other and they're like, yeah, we're cool. And it was cool, and I loved it.
I forgot that happened. Oh my god. I feel like this is what I'm trying to get at when I say I like that this reminds me of Doctor Who, because there's a lot of like really niche, like quirky stuff that happens in Doctor Who. Like, bow ties are cool. That is like ridiculous and stupid and cringy, but then on the surface, but then underneath it's like, no, this is my childhood and this is hilarious and I love this.
Yeah.
So I feel like this show definitely gives me those vibes. I think to your point about the slow-mo, I mean, now that you say that, now your framing of that makes me realize how silly it is, but in the moment, my tiny pea brain was like, yeah.
Right? Yeah. See, that's why it works. Because you're watching it and you're like,
cool.
This is cinema. And then you think about it and you're like, why?
You're like, oh.
Why did they do that?
But I think you're right about Jesper's scene. It made the most sense and it was also one of my favorites. Right, yeah. It works so well for the Crows because the Crows really are like action characters. They're very like James Bondy, so it makes sense for them, but I agree that it really didn't make sense for Mal. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Like, we can see him throw punches, but you don't need to slow it down. It's all good.
It's also funny.
He looks great doing it.
It's also funny because I'll talk later about how I feel like the pacing for the show is really interesting this season. So it's funny that the pacing, in my opinion, is kind of fast, but then you know it's slow motion scenes.
Like, that's what they chose to slow down.
They were like, whoa, slow this down. This is really important.
We're like, slow burn, and they said, slow-mo?
No, you said slow-mo. Okay.
Slow-mo. Okay. Cool. Noted.
My second peak was that I give so many shits about Nina Zenik and only Nina Zenik. She's so interesting to me.
Yeah.
And like whenever she's on screen, I'm just like fully enthralled by everything she says. Like she's so like quippy and fun and like cool and like I spent the whole first 2 episodes kind of like raving about her and like listening to her beautiful accent and just thinking, wow, I wish she was my girlfriend. So I
want to be her.
I want to be her and I want to be with her. So I was like very immersed in everything that she has done and said so far. Her storyline is like very special to me and I'm really excited to see where things go for her in this season and maybe in future seasons. So yeah. What was your second peak?
To just go along with like characters, Jesper and Wylan have my whole heart. I love WESPER. I love them together. I love them so much in the books. So finally seeing them together, I was like, yay, let's go. We're doing it. At first I thought, because like they kind of allude to Wylan and Jesper like meeting beforehand, because Wylan immediately was just like, oh hey, it's you, and Jesper's just like, who are you?
Yeah.
You know? And I was just like, uh-oh, like what are we doing? But
who
like,
the fuck are you?
Because like,
who the fuck are you?
Who the fuck are you?
Yeah.
As much as I loved the slow burn in the books, and like there's still part of me that's like, man, I wish they'd like built this up a little bit more. Like I think it worked for me. It worked that they like met before, and it just was so freaking funny that Jesper didn't recognize Wylan until he was literally on top of him.
Yeah, like,
oh my God. Yeah, you bought me stoop waffles, and Wylan's like, now
you know who I am? Hello? Yeah.
So I thought that was so funny, and I feel like as I said, all the Crows are perfectly casted in my opinion, but I feel like Jesper and Wylan kind of take the cake as far as like, we peeled them right off the book page.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what magic they used to find them and get them, but it's like they were made to play these characters, and they are playing these characters, and they do them so well. And you can tell in their performance that they care so much about these books, and they read them, and they know these characters inside and out. And just, I feel like you really see that with Jesper and Wylan in like their subtleties, especially since like both of their characters are kind of like chaotic in their own way, but when you get like those subtle moments between them, you're like, they get it.
Yeah,
that's WESPER, baby.
That's WESPER, baby.
One last note on Jesper, I think they're doing his wardrobe justice this season.
Oh my god,
because in the books he's kind of known to just put the most ridiculous colors together, and like little outfits and like he mentions like all of his hats and everything in these couple episodes, but like you see what he's wearing, you're like, that's kind of a dumb looking coat, but he's making it work and he loves it. And I think they're doing great.
I completely agree with you, because when I think back to reading Six of Crows, I think the series was already out when I started it, and I remember picturing people that looked very much like Wylan and Jesper do in the show, and now we're here, and it's like, wow, they're here. That's them. It's them. So I'm with you there. I think the strength of this whole show is going to always be casting of the Crows. Like, they're so special. I feel like I want to see them go on. I want to see the storyline of Six of Crows take place. Like, there's just so much. Like, I love them. I want them. Yeah. And we know that there is some discussion of potentially like a spin-off of Six of Crows in the works. So I just would love that, and I feel like that would make me very happy, and it would complete my life, and I would be content, and I would sleep very well at night if that happened. So everybody, keep watching Shadow and Bone so that happens.
Yeah, as I'll admit it. The Crows are like, I mean, I loved the Shadow and Bone trilogy, but with this show, the Crows are what I go to. Yeah. Like, they have my favorite scenes. They have my complete and full attention when they're on the screen, because they were my favorite books, and they're my favorite character. I think they're the most interesting characters, to be honest. Yes. So, and I don't blame them for putting them in the first season at all, because I really feel like they probably wouldn't have the audience that they have if they didn't have the Crows.
I agree.
In the first season.
I agree. So, I think
they know they're the fan favorite. So
it's interesting, because I think I'm going to come away from like this next season with a lot of pondering about execution of this show, and like what could have been done differently, and what can be done differently in the future to ensure that like the fan favorites are given some attention, and that maybe like, because one of the things that comes up again over and over again when we talk about the books is like, you don't have to read the trilogy first, but it does introduce the world to you. It's a great setup. It's recommended you read the trilogy first before you get to Six of Crows, which is arguably the strongest book in the whole Grishaverse, where that trilogy maybe isn't seen that way. And I wonder if that would have been something to think about in this scenario, and if it remains the case that like we needed to set up the world, and like I will be thinking probably forever until the day I die about like what could be done differently to ensure that like the Crows are given their flowers. But which is what I'm about to talk about for my Valley.
Yeah, what's your Valley?
So the pacing and like the back and forth between the Crows and Alina's storyline is driving me fucking bonkers. Like, I think like part of it is the storylines are not fully intertwined like they were in the first season. Like, I think toward the end of the season we'll probably come back to where we were again, just based on where I am right now. But like, I feel like right now I'm watching two different shows, and then when we go, I'm kind of like, it's like a tennis match where I'm like, like things just keep changing, and my little brain can't keep up with it, you know?
Yeah.
So
especially since you're going through like, at this point, 5 books.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, we're in Siege and Storm. Oh, we're in Six of Crows. Oh, we're in Rising. We're in Crooked Kingdom. Like, what's going on?
It's all moving so quickly, and I'm like, I'm having a really hard time keeping up, because I think I agree with you. Like, there are things that I wish happened later. Like, I almost kind of wish they hadn't jumped right into Kaz's storyline, because as much as it was a hook for me, I was like, part of me is like, part of me is like, A, why wasn't he having these flashbacks last season? And B, can we, like, what is the instigating? Is it coming back to Ketterdam? Is that the instigating action that causes him to start thinking about this again? Like, you know, it just feels
That's a
like,
good point.
It's not very clear to me how we just kind of jump back into this. And it does stress me out a little bit.
Well,
but I
think...
Go ahead.
I think the argument for why he is suddenly having flashbacks is the fact that Pekka Rollins has taken over the barrel. And because he's the one who's kind of in charge and he overtook the Crow Club and everything. I think that is a good reason why now he's having the flashback and why we didn't see that last season, because in last season he was in a comfortable spot. Like, he was in control of his club and everything. But now that Pekka has the upper hand, like he did when he was a child, I feel like that I feel like in that case it works for me. But I do still see your point is like, where was this last season? Like, all of a sudden she's like, oh yeah, and by the way, he has trauma.
He has trauma. And that's hard. It's hard to reconcile with the show because in the book we don't meet Kaz until right now. So the assumption is this is what he's been thinking about for the last like 10 years of his life without being in a comfortable place ever. So it's hard for me to reconcile those things. I guess this is kind of what's hard for me to reconcile in terms of pacing is like you've got the Crows storyline, which is very fast paced and like, you know, everything's always happening. And then we tune back to like Mal and Alina, and they're on the ship with this guy named Sturmhound, and like we don't know what's going on, but it's all good, and we're gonna find the scales we need, and it's all good, you know. And it's like I've just
then you get back to Ketterdam and you're like, chaos.
Yeah, it's very hard to go back and forth, but that was one for me. And then speaking of Sturmhound, I will talk more in our next episode about why exactly I wanted more from this, but I just found his introduction very underwhelming. Like, I think I wanted more in terms of face, and I wasn't getting that, and we'll talk more about that next week, but I just wanted to cue that when he just shows up in the scene with Kaz and Jesper. First of all, I like that they are meeting already because I think they have a great dynamic too, but like at the same time I was just like, oh, there you are. What? What?
Hey guy.
Hello. So that, and then lastly, I know this isn't a direct adaptation, so there's gonna be some changes. I think the one thing that kind of pissed me off was they killed off Tante Helene, or the accusation is that the Crows killed Tante Helene and she's dead. And
corpse didn't happen.
Yeah, well, honestly, yeah, because like I think it would be a big disservice to Inej and her story for them to kill off Tante Helene and not give us that experience of seeing Inej being able to like not avenge but like heal a little bit and take back what is hers from Tante Helene. So hopefully that's not the case. Fingers crossed. How about you, Caitlin?
So my first, hey, why are we doing this?
That's a good description.
What's all this then?
What's all this then?
Is they gave up the information of Jesper being a Durast real quick.
Oh
this
yeah,
season.
I agree. Oh my god,
I was like, no.
Yeah,
for free.
Yeah,
it's like last season when they gave up the Darkling's name as Alexander. Like immediately, like it took us 3 books to get that information, and for Jesper, we're like halfway through Six of Crows before we the audience find out. Yeah, because they use it in a scene, because it's a very relevant in an important scene in Six of Crows, but it's like it's almost halfway through the book that you get it, and like you get first episode, and Kaz is like. Just throws like a coin at him to get out of his locks, and Jesper's like, what am I supposed to do with this? And Kaz is just like, you know, and I know, and here's all the reasons why I know, which like again, that's why I liked how they were doing it last season, because they were hinting at it, where it's like, if you read the books, you know what's going on, and that's really cool, but if you didn't, you're like, ooh, what's all this then? like what's going on with Jesper? I kind of wish that they didn't reveal that right away. Like, again, you can keep hinting at it maybe, but then maybe halfway through the season reveal that he's a Durast, because it was such a cool reveal in the book.
Yes.
Because I remember reading it, like, not exactly realizing what was happening at first, and then I go, oh my god, he's a fabricator. Like, this is so freaking cool. Yeah. And especially since, like, he hides that from people, and, like, most Grisha up until this point are like, yeah, I'm Grisha, but Jesper's like, shh, don't tell anybody that I'm Grisha. So I really didn't like that they just gave that up super, super quick.
I agree with that, because
and
it's so special. It's such an important part of the book. Like, it's something I didn't see coming throughout all of all of the series.
Exactly.
So it was important. It was like a huge thing for me when I found out. So I agree.
Yeah.
Justice for Jesper.
And also, justice for Jesper. But also the fact that, like, he just takes the coin and then, like, he literally, like, turns his hand and then there's a key in his hand. He's not that skilled.
No,
like,
oh my god, yeah.
He didn't get the training that, like, he was from Navia Zem, so he didn't get, like, the Ravkin training that everybody else basically does, or, like, the Grisha training.
Yeah.
Like, he got a little bit of training, but it wasn't in the way that would make you super, super skilled.
Right.
And then he just stopped.
Yeah.
Completely. And that's, like, the whole reason why he has, like, not the whole reason, but part of the reason why he has a gambling addiction is because, like, if you're Grisha and you don't use your power, you get sick, and that's, like, a whole thing in the books. And it was also, like, a struggle for him in Six of Crows of, like, yeah, he's a fabricator, but he's not the best at it, and that kind of, like, causes some issues, but he, like, slowly gets a little bit better, or he gets more comfortable as a Grisha, and, like, demonstrating the fact that he's a Grisha. So the fact that he's just like, here's a perfectly fit key, like, bothered me, and I'm just like, I love you, but you're not supposed to be good at this.
That is a great point. Wow. Yeah. I
also, like, when you talk about pacing, I was immediately concerned when Pekka Rollins had control of the barrel, because I was like, hey, huh?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah, that was a big shock for me too.
Yeah, so I was like, this feels Crooked Kingdom-y.
This feels crooked.
This feels crooked. I also said so much is happening so fast because I feel like that is kind of just an overall generalization of how I feel about, like, these first couple episodes so far. And then also just the fact that Alina and Mel have it so cozy right now.
Yeah, true.
I felt like in the books, they're living below decks on Sturmhond's ship. They don't know Sturmhond. They don't know if they can trust him. The Darkling is on the ship with them in the book. And I understand that they have to make changes. I totally get it. But it was so easy.
Yeah.
You know? It was like, hey, we need to get on the ship. And they're like, all right,
okay,
come on over. You want to play some cards?
Yeah.
You know? So it was just like, I was like, you're supposed to be having a really bad time right now.
Literally.
Like, everything is supposed to be stressful. And Alina and Mel are like, time to go.
Everything's great. Yeah.
Yeah. I was really looking forward to some scenes that, like, so in the book, when they find the sea whip and then they mutiny against the Darkling, and it's a whole fantastic
cool
sequence.
Yeah.
It is so cool, and it played like a movie in my head while I was reading it, and that's like what hooked me, and I ended up almost finishing the book that day, because it was just like, I was like, okay, I'm in it, like, this is so freaking cool.
Yeah.
And I love that scene so much, and it just didn't exist in the show. It was like, you can't do everything, but I'm like, but that was so cool. Like,
It feels like they have to. They've been taking because they made the choice to have these two stories going on at the same time, and then, like, kind of three stories. And you think about the fact that the Darkling is now off with a couple Grisha and David and Genya, but, like, I think it that means you have to take a lot of liberties, obviously, with, like, storytelling. And I wonder if that, like, kind of takes a lot of the weight off of some of the scenes that are taking place so far that happen in the book and were, like, really interesting and cool. So I agree with you. There's so much that you're pointing out that I'm like, oh yeah, that happened.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are my valleys.
Great. Amazing. Caitlin, we have a brand new tier list for this show. Would you like to tell us what the categories are? Yeah.
So at the top of our tier list, we have which is a sound that both of us have adopted this year. It gives the emotion of, wow, we really like what's going on, but we have no words for it, but it just makes us go, wee!
We're having so much fun!
Yay!
Yeah.
Having such a good time! Yeah. So that's the top. The second tier is nice, but, like,
nice
Taylor Swift, you know? Keep with the theme that Amberlynn is about to go bingo boingo bonkers insane at the Eras tour. And then our neutral rating, the third tier down, is I'm just here for a good time. Like,
Yeah,
maybe it wasn't
neutral.
the best, but it wasn't the worst. But it was still was like, yeah, I'm having fun, and that's kind of all that matters at the end of the day.
Worse things have happened to me in my lifetime.
Exactly.
As have better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we're just here for a good time, not a long time. The fourth tier down, where we're getting to like more of our negative territory, is I guess that was a thing that happened. You decided it. You made a choice. You know. So, and then our very final tier for the worst of the worst is, right, what's all this then?
Right, what's all this then?
What's all this then?
Day in the life of a Bractic geezer. Cool.
Yeah, so those are our new tiers for Shadow and Bone Season 2. Emberlyn, where do you rate these first 2 episodes?
If I could, I would put it somewhere in between I'm just here for a good time and nice. But because it's Taylor Swift week, I'm going to say nice.
Yeah.
Because it is. How about you?
Yeah, I agree. For these first 2 episodes, I'm going to say nice. Because I, once we, started it, I was like, oh, I missed this. Like, it's been a while since I've watched, a really, like a fantasy, show and everything. So, and I was just really excited to see all of the characters again. So, I was having a good time, but it was a little bit more elevated for me to go, nice!
Yeah. That's good. Yeah, it's an elevated feeling of having a good time.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. So it was a strong start to the season for me.
So that's gonna do it for us.
Right.
Thank you for listening to Live by Moonlight. Tune in next time when we review episodes 3 and 4 of Shadow and Bone.
Woohoo! Go to our YouTube channel, Spotify page, whatever you listen to us on. There's a lot of things that we have a lot of opinions on. So,
Yay!
join us!